Hey YouTube, I just wanted to let you know that the following video you are about to watch is actually a part of the Creatrix live series happening over on Instagram. We started this 5-week-long live series in celebration of the next cohort of my signature group coaching program known as Embodied Creatrix. This program is 12 weeks long. It is for women visionaries who are ready to live a soul-aligned life that turns them on so that they can make the impact they know they're here to create. So it starts with getting clear on our values and vision, doing the mindset work to own our desires, doing the mindset work to show up for our dreams, right? We do all of this through, again, deep mindset, pleasure, clarity, strategy, and execution. So this is deep work that happens over a 3-month-long period in community, in a container with other driven, visionary women. And so in celebration of this next iteration of my program starting August 30th, I wanted to give people sort of a sneak peek of the kind of work that we do in the full program, give everyone a feel for the kind of content that we unpack therein. And so that's why we're doing this 5-week-long live series. So we're dropping juicy, delicious, actionable content. So whether you're interested in the full program or not, you will get served. You will find tools and information to support you in owning your desires and showing up for your dreams and executing on your vision. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities for winning Creatrix related prizes and giveaways. So if you want to participate live, I highly recommend you come find us on Instagram. All the relevant links to learn about the program, to find me on Instagram and participate live is down below, and I can't wait to see you there. The title of today's episode is Rewire Your Brain, Facing Your Fears and Making It Fun. And you're like, what? That's ridiculous, Kelsey. You're crazy. Making your fears fun? That's so silly. It's not. Bear with me. Okay? I think that part of where this came from for me, this habit of sort of not wanting to look at my fears, not wanting to even go there, not wanting to explore there, part of that for me came from my time in spiritual communities, because there was this, whether it was said outright or not, there was just this feeling, this idea that to face fear or to bump up against it or to indulge it in some way was like indulging negativity, right? And so we didn't want to go there. We didn't even want to think about it. We didn't want to you didn't want to indulge the negativity, right? And so talking about fears and acknowledging our fears in some ways was, kind of taboo. Like we just wanted to not go there, right? And so I had to kind of learn how to not make myself wrong for having fear, because it's really just part of the human experience. It doesn't matter what phase of your life you're in. Every new phase is going to bring you different challenges, different situations and circumstances that you haven't experienced or faced before. And you're human. There's just going to be some fears and worries around that. And so I had to learn how to not make myself wrong for having fears or for experiencing fear, right? I had to allow myself the space to just decide that that was part of the human experience and that I could manage and navigate all of it, right? And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, because I think for a lot of us there is this underlying fear that if we indulge or acknowledge or talk about or bring up our fears, we're somehow indulging negativity or perpetuating more fear, right? So when it comes to creating a life we love, when it comes to pursuing our desires and dreams, it is so important to actually have to create safety around acknowledging your fears and becoming aware of some of those subconscious fears, because awareness is power. Awareness allows us the ability to make more informed decisions, right? And so if we're in full avoidance of our fears, if we're treating them like taboo, we don't want to see them, we don't want to look at them, we don't want to think about them, right? We're just pretending they're not there. We're giving our power away to those fears, in fact, right? If we can't see it, then we can't make informed decisions around it, right? And we've talked extensively throughout the Creatrix Live series about how part of owning our Creatrix energy is making decisions and moving from our desires and our dreams, not our doubt. So if we can't even see in the process of creation where it is we're doubting, right, then how can we make an informed decision around that, right? And so this is where our subconscious fears and our subconscious blocks end up holding us back, is when we avoid actually acknowledging them, looking at them, becoming aware of them. We can't see how our behavior is being affected by them. Ergo, we're giving our power away to the fear, right? And so it's really important to just bring awareness to them, right? And again, this isn't about making ourselves wrong for having them. The fear itself isn't actually the problem. The fear itself isn't actually the problem, right? It's how we relate to it, respond to it, and engage it that makes all the difference of whether it's going to be, a problem later or something that we can work through and manage and navigate, right? And so that's why awareness around our fears is so important. We don't want to avoid them. We want to bring them to the surface. You could think of this as a form of shadow work, right? So, again, this is not about making yourself wrong for having fear. Fear is in many ways unavoidable, right? It's about acknowledging that that's just part of the human experience, and that every phase of your life is going to bring new worries, new anxieties, new fears, because there's things that you haven't experienced before and situations you've never been in before, and that's just part of how it works, right? And so again, it's how we relate to, respond to, and engage the fears that makes all the difference. Okay, and so I'm talking mostly about subconscious fears here, right? So let me just give you kind of an example. So this is a personal example from me and my life. When I started building my business, I'm someone who really likes my freedom. And I was very concerned that the busier I got, or the more my business took off, that I would not have time to myself. Let me back up a little bit. It came to a point where I learned how to do this fear inventory technique. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to journal out all my fears. And what happened surprised me. This silly little fear that I wasn't going to have time to myself, which I have so much time. The fact that I was so worried about relinquishing a little bit of it at a time was just kind of hilarious to me. It actually surprised me because I didn't expect this to be a subconscious fear of mine. It was something that I did not imagine was going to come up in this exercise, in this fear inventory. So I did myself this fear inventory, and the fear of losing time was really, once I laid it all out there and journaled all about it, I saw how big it was. And then I started to connect the dots to how I was playing small and how I was making risk avoidant decisions, and how it is I talked about my business and talked to clients and promoted my services and all of these things. So it started to paint a picture how this little silly fear that I would not have time for myself and be some weird workaholic that, was burnout and, overwhelmed with work, how that was really affecting my behavior and my choices and my decisions, right? Which the reason I thought it was funny is because I have really strong boundaries as a person. I am fully capable and fully practiced at saying no and telling people, sorry, I can't commit to that. And so the fact that I was so afraid that I wouldn't be able to do that in business, right? That I wouldn't be able to actually schedule my business according to my time and my needs, I mean, wasn't that the reason I was going into business for myself in the first place, so that I could have that freedom, right? The idea that I wouldn't be able to, to schedule appropriately, to carve out time for myself, to say no to things, because those are all things that I was good at already and confident in already, right? So that's why the fear surprised me. And it took me a while to kind of work through it, to see it, to notice it, and to choose to make more informed decisions about how it is I was running and promoting my business and such, right? But here's what I really want you to hear. As I mentioned, I am someone with strong boundaries. I was at that time fully confident in saying no and carving out time for myself. My time to myself is so precious to me that it was something I wouldn't, exploit or compromise. And so what that fear actually demonstrated to me when I saw it, when it came up, and I saw all the different ways that it was kind of ruling some of my behaviors and choices and decisions, what that told me was that beneath that surface fear of me not having time for myself if my business took off was all actually stemming from me not trusting myself, right? From me not trusting myself to manage and navigate my autonomy, right? Me not trusting myself to make informed decisions around how I spent my time and how I scheduled my time and, what I devoted to business versus personal time, right? All of that was just a little bit of me not trusting myself to handle the responsibility, the added responsibility of a fuller calendar, right? And so what I had to do was practice managing that, was practice holding that responsibility, was practice holding myself accountable to, keeping my time sacred, right? So you see what I mean here? So under our subconscious fears, I find for a lot of us, there's a surface fear like losing time, not having enough time to ourselves, right? But underneath that is this fear that we don't trust ourselves, that we don't trust ourselves to manage or navigate the responsibility connected to whatever the fear is, right? For me, it was business, right? I didn't trust myself to manage and navigate like a calendar. I didn't trust myself to the point that I thought I was going to lose all my time and become a crazy, overworked, workaholic or something, which is just so silly if you know me, right? And so, a lot of times it's all about trust. And this makes total sense. Because if it's something you've never done before, right? If it's a new activity, a new habit, if it's something you've never done or experienced before, of course you're going to be a little like, well, I'm going to have to learn how to hold that. I'm going to have to learn how to be responsible in this, new endeavor, right? So again, it isn't about making ourselves wrong for having the fear or making ourselves wrong for like doubting that we have the capacity or capability to do it, right? It's not making ourselves wrong for that lack of trust. It's going, oh, okay, well then let me practice trusting myself while I do this thing. Let me practice trusting myself while I take on more responsibility. Let me practice trusting myself while my calendar fills up, right? Let me practice trusting myself and being responsible in this way. Because if I allow myself to do that, I'm going to gain the evidence that I am capable. It's so simple, right? Like if you're anybody who's a parent out there or people who, are aunties or uncles or whatever, or work with kids, if you're giving your child or a kid a new responsibility, like there's going to be a little wobble. They're going to have to, practice. They're going to have to work themselves through it. Sometimes they're going to feel like they don't have the capacity to manage or navigate it. But all that is that fear, that wobbly sort of self-trust. And so we have to build it over time and through practice and process. It's like so simple. But again, if we are avoiding our fears, if we're pretending they're not there because we don't want to look at them, because it's taboo, because it's uncomfortable, right? Most of the time it's just uncomfortable. then we're never going to see this cycle play out. We're never going to have eyes on the little tiny ways that we are doubting ourselves, not trusting ourselves to do big things or to do new things, right? And so those fears are going to be, we're giving our power away to them, and we're allowing them, without even realizing it, to influence the choices and decisions we make, right? So I was playing small in business in the way I was managing or the way I was promoting and discussing about my services and things because of that little sneaky fear and the underlying trust issue underneath of it, right? So I had to just decide that I was going to practice trusting myself as these things happen, right? Sometimes we fuck it up, sometimes it gets messy, but I trusted myself to clean that up. I decided to trust myself to clean it up if and when that happened, right? So does that make sense? So the, we want to have part of Creatrix energy, cultivating our Creatrix energy, is understanding where we have agency, right? And so here in this conversation, our agency lies in how it is we relate to, respond, and engage the fear, right? And so, again, not making ourselves wrong for it, not making ourselves wrong for what's underneath it. If it's a trust issue, which most of the time it is, just because it's a new thing, it's a new situation, it's a new habit, it's a new action, and so we don't really fully trust ourselves yet to handle it until we see that we can, right? Until we have the evidence that over time and practice that it is something we can manage and navigate, right? So our agency, again, is how it is we relate to, respond, and engage the fear. So the solution here is doing an inventory, a fear inventory. It's getting intimate with your fears. It is bringing awareness to them, right? And one of the ways that we can make this fun, which is part of the title, right? How to rewire your brain so you can face your fears and make it fun, is we get into our bodies. We get embodied, right? So as I mentioned earlier, facing our fears is just an uncomfortable thing. Part of it is that conditioning that I was speaking about, how we don't want to talk about it, it's taboo, it's negative, we don't want to indulge it, right? And so part of the uncomfortability is that piece. It's saying that shit out loud when most people don't or don't want to. And then the other part of it is having the embodied experience of bringing it up, right? And so what we want to do is create safety in our embodied experience as much as we can to the best of our abilities with the resources we have. Create safety, create curiosity. You know how little kids like just ask the weirdest questions and then you give them an answer and they're like, but why? And you're like, well, I don't know, da 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 da. And they're like, but why? And they're like, I don't know, because da 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 da. But why? You know, just being really innocent and curious. Again, not making yourself wrong. And then creating pleasure as well. So safety, pleasure, and curiosity are my go-tos. So this looks like going to a safe space, right? Do you have a safe, sacred space? Maybe your safe space is like in your bed in your fluffy, comfy covers. Maybe your safe space is with a really trusted friend who's willing to do this, like work with you, or whatever kind of sensations, or, I mean, we're talking like physical senses here, people, like turning on your physical senses to create safety, like what makes you feel safe and secure in your body, right? And then activating that curiosity, but why? But why? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does curiosity look like to you? Is it playful? Is it inquisitive? You know, activating that curiosity in your senses, and then pleasure. Like, while you are either communicating your fears to a friend or journaling your fears on paper, like what can you incorporate into that experience? We talked about this a little bit last week, that either infusing pleasure and joy into a situation while you take the action, or sandwiching, right? So doing something really pleasurable and joyful, then going to do the activity, then capping it off with something really pleasurable and joyful, so that we're making positive body embodied associations, right? So if you haven't watched that Creatrix Live, go watch it. It was, I can't remember the title, The Best Hack for Rewiring Your Brain and Forming New Habits. So, excuse me, all of that applies here. This live is kind of a build on top of that live. So, creating safety, curiosity, and pleasure within the body. And I mean like physical senses, like what makes you feel safe and what makes you feel supported, and what makes you feel maybe joyful a little bit, or curious, right? Curiosity, or exploratory, right? So this is going to look different for everybody. And again, this could be like, you know, lighting your favorite candle, a candle that reminds you of home, or yeah, safety, security, right? This could be having your favorite beverage. This could be wrapping yourself in your favorite blanket. This could be, I've done a fear inventory while dancing, right? Because I feel my fullest self when I'm dancing and expressing myself. And so why not just allow the fears to be a part of that too, right? Because there's nothing wrong with them. It's not the fear itself that's the issue. It's how I choose to relate, respond, and engage the fear that makes all the difference, right? So getting embodied, getting into our bodies and creating positive associations with the act of facing our fears. And so what does, how can you make those positive associations fun, right? Fun, pleasurable, curious, and safe. And I swear to God, doing this over time, now it's like, no, like if someone asked me like what I was afraid of, I would just be like, yeah, let's get into it. Like, let's explore that shit. Like it's so natural for me now, and I don't make myself wrong for it. And I'm surprised every time I do a fear inventory, because it's a little thing that I'm like, that's so silly. And then I dig deeper and I see like, oh, it's just that I don't trust myself with this responsibility yet. Like, well, I'll just practice trusting myself as I take on that responsibility and as I do that big thing, right? And so now it's just habit, and I don't even have to really have the whole experience where I create the safety and the pleasure and the curiosity, because that association is there and now it's just more natural, right? So when it comes to creating a life you love, when it comes to your vision for your life, when it comes to your desires and dreams, the exercise here is to get embodied, to create that safety, that security, that joy, that pleasure, that curiosity, whatever that looks like for you, right? Kind of being extra with it, making it really safe and pleasurable and exciting, so that you can have all of those, you know, somatic experiences in your body of the pleasure, of the joy, of the curiosity, of all the things. Oh my God. And then you enter that both and space where you're feeling the pleasure and the joy, and you're allowing yourself to face those uncomfortable things, right? This is building resilience around sitting with discomfort, okay? So the fear inventory is really simple, like the actual journaling piece, or the communicate, like you could do this with a friend. You guys could take turns talking it out, right? But basically it's just asking yourself the question, like, why? So like, what is the vision for your life, or what is the desire or dream you're currently building or actively manifesting or creating? Ask yourself, why don't I want this to work? Why don't I want this to work? Ooh, why don't I want this to work? And then just brain dump. Let it all come out. Put it on the journal page. Communicate it to that friend that you're doing it with, if you're doing this in a partnership type of way, which would be really fun. And then the whole time you're releasing all of those fears, you're just leaning into the pleasure and leaning into the joy and leaning into the safety and leaning into the curiosity and that exploratory energy, right? Being extra with it so that we can create these positive associations, that it is safe for you to explore this aspect of yourself, that it is safe and even exciting for you to uncover these things within yourself, right? That it is, that it's exciting for you to see all the new ways that you get to practice trusting yourself and playing big and owning your ability to do new things and do big things, right? That's exciting. So this is how we create those positive associations like we talked about on Tuesday. This is how we build our resilience so that we can be with discomfort and not just avoid it at all costs. Because again, when we're avoiding these things, we can't see the power that they hold over us. We can't see how they are sneakily behind the scenes influencing our decisions and choices, right? So we want to bring awareness to them, because that awareness is power, and awareness allows us more informed decisions, okay? So get yourself a journal, phone a friend who would be into doing this with you, and like make it a whole thing. Like make it a little mini retreat. Take yourself to your, like carve out some time, take yourself to like whatever your safe, sacred like space is, or create one for yourself. Get super comfy, get bougie, like zhuzh it up, and go for it, all right? And see what comes up. And see, like, then you can map out all the little ways that you've been playing small because there was a subconscious inner child part of you that was afraid to trust yourself with new responsibility or with change, right? So let me just check my notes here. See if there's anything else I want to say. Yeah, so this is what I call the both and experience. Where you feel the fear, but you do the thing anyway, right? Courage requires fear, right? Because courage is the acknowledgement of the fear and the choice to move ahead anyway, right? And so there's so many situations where we are living in the both and, but we're looking at the world through black and white ways, right? Oh, I can't look at my fear because that's negative and that's a bad thing, right? You're allowed to feel your fear. You're allowed to bring awareness to your fears. You're allowed to acknowledge them, to accept them, and feel good about that, right? That's the both and experience. So I can have the fearful thought. I can do an inventory on the fearful thought, feel the fear, and feel good while I do it, and feel curious while I do it, and feel safe while I do it. And so this is part of that building resilience, to sit in the discomfort, is building our capacity to be in that both and space. That both and of I can feel this and that this can be true and this can be true, right? I can be afraid and I can be empowered. I can feel the fear and be courageous, right? I can have the doubt or the lack of self-trust and choose to move from my desires and decision, even if the doubt is there, right? I can still have the doubt and make a choice not based on the doubt if I have the awareness, right? So that's what the both and is kind of all about, right? Allowing our mind to have the experience of the fearful thought and our body to have something different. Again, that's the mind-body connection, creating those associations. But also we do this all the time with our emotional capacity. So just bringing our awareness to how much we live in that liminal both and space. Because when we get stressed out or we get overwhelmed, we tend to like zoom in and make everything black and white and make ourselves wrong for certain things. So this is how we kind of play and explore that both and space. I can have the fear and do big things anyway, right? I can have the doubt and do big things anyway. I can have the doubt or the lack of self-trust and choose to trust myself anyway. Little by little, bit by bit, 1 degree at a time, to the best of my ability with the resources I have. And then simply facing our fears in this way just releases the charge around them, right? Because if it's something we're not looking at, that like if we're avoiding them at all costs, like that unknown is just something that holds power over us. It holds charge over us. And so by just saying it out loud, we release some of the tension. We are releasing some of the emotional charge. We're releasing some of that resistance, and we're just letting it be. We're letting it air out. And so this is another reason why just letting it be is so powerful and so helpful, right? It's just releasing the hold it has on us and just accepting that, yeah, I'm going to have fears when I take on new responsibilities and do big things and enter new phases of my life and my creation process. Excuse me. All right. So that is your homework for today, is to do yourself a fear inventory. Again, getting embodied, creating those positive associations so you feel safe and curious while you're doing this thing, so that you're building those pathways in your body that over time are going to be like, oh yeah, facing our fears is something we do on the regular. It's no big deal. It's important. It serves us in the long term. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but we know that it's beneficial in the long run, and we know that we can do this and make it through because we've been practicing, and now we have the evidence that it is safe and that it is okay. And even that it's kind of fun and tantalizing sometimes, because, oh my God, what are we going to discover? And how are we going to use that information to more deeply lean into trust, to trust ourselves better, to do big things, to play bigger now that we know that we just need to practice trusting ourselves, right? That's how powerful this is. So that is how you can rewire your brain and body, face your fears, and make it fun. Okay, guys? So try it. Let me know how it goes. And again, this is something we do extensively in the Embodied Creatrix program, of course, because in this live series, we're talking all about the things we do in Embodied Creatrix. So if you are wanting support in doing some of this fear inventory and facing your fears and building mindset reframes and thoughts around it and actually embodying the version of you that says, I feel the fear and I'm going to do it anyway, right? Then Embodied Creatrix is for you. We do it with community support. We do it with coaching support. So you don't have to do this by yourself. You can join us. You can come into the program and we can dedicate 90 days, 12 weeks of dedicated work around this kind of stuff so that we can embody the version of us that we know we're meant to be, so that we can actually become them. Embody that version of you, that higher self version of you, the version of you that your desire, that is your desired personhood, right? Through practice, through repetition, through processes like this. That's what Embodied Creatrix is all about. Again, that incubator kind of container. So only a few days left to sign up, about a week, I guess, because the cart closes on the 27th. So we are nearing the end. And I would love to have you there with us. So DM me, reach out if you have questions around this, if you have questions around the program. Feel free to book a free soul synergy call with me if you want to talk about building out your processes for working through some of the fears that you uncover, or we can do that together in a soul synergy call. And I will see you guys around. All right. Mwah, mwah, mwah.